Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night show. I am Domina Dia, one half of La Maison de Rouge, and I hope everybody is having a wonderful Monday so far. Today, we have the marvelous educator, Princess Callie. And if you don't know who Princess Callie is, she is a world-renowned former dominatrix, has spent nearly 20 years exploring the intersection of alternative lifestyles, business, and marketing. She's a relentless multimedia creator who believes in self-improvement through perversion. She is a pioneer of the kinktrepreneur business model, creating such sites as educational sites as Kink Academy, and in 2020 launched the Red Key Club, a business and marketing school for sex workers. Callie is the author of 8 books, including Enough to Make You Blush, exploring erotic humiliation, and her work continues to inspire and support many other kink educators, writers, and enthusiasts. So please welcome Princess Callie.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. You are definitely one of the most inspiring speakers and educators that I've ever come across because you are so warm and approachable and delightful.
Oh, thank you, Dia. I really appreciate that. And yet also am a total cunt. So it's quite the little intersection. Talk about intersections.
It's all about how paradoxical.
Right, exactly. The Venn diagram of self,
Yes.
right? Where warmth meets bitch.
Yes. You can be all the things.
It is. Well, and you know what, actually, to get serious for a moment, Dia, that's actually one of the things that I love about not only being a dominant woman, but being a pro-dom specifically, is like how celebratory it is to be a person of paradox. And I think that there's so little opportunity for that, you know?
Yeah,
So
especially in our culture, the way that so many people have expectations of certain genders, and it's like you're this or you're that, but you can't be both. And if you are, then what? My mind is blown. I can't take it. I'm going to reject it.
Right. And of course that willful confusion is right where us kinky perverts love to play, right? It's like when our brains are on the fritz, it's such a fabulous playground.
Yes. It's all about how many minds we can blow.
That's right.
And staying in that space where nothing but everything is real.
You know, and actually what makes me think about that is Natasha Strange just this a couple of days ago, did her Mindfuck for Femmes class. And there was something that she tweeted that was just like, oh, I'm sure Chef Kiss is not hip anymore, but I still do it. She said something about how creating a sense of like where they don't trust themselves, but they trust you. Fucking make me horny some more, Natasha. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that has an interesting kind of like what do you call it? Double standard, because I think that a lot of narcissistic people use that too. And, you know, it's called like gaslighting.
Yes. Yes. Oh, good point. Right. But what a difference consent makes.
Exactly. And to what end are we doing it? You know, like, are we doing it to gain power, or are we doing it to, and this is something that I love about that you just wrote, self-improvement through perversion. I really want to talk more about that because I identify as a pervert, and a lot of times I didn't know what to do with it. So we'll come back to that for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into all of this, and like maybe your first steps into the world of domination and BDSM?
Yeah, very long time ago, I actually got into kink through stripping. I mean, When I was younger, I would say that I've always had a very dominant personality. I made my like neighbors do homework for the opportunity to hang out with me, like do fake homework. Like I gave them fake assignments for like the privilege of hanging out with me. And so clearly I have always been this way. But the way that I got into professional domination was through stripping. I really loved stripping. I did bachelor parties, not like strip clubs. And so I found it to be empowering and where I could really dictate my own terms. And I made, a ton of great money. And I really found my erotic assertiveness in that space. And so then when I moved to Boston from California, and all of the strip clubs and places that I was trying to get a job, like wanted me to do extras. And just for me personally, those weren't boundaries I was ready or, interested in crossing. And so, so I followed an ad to a foot fetish party, and it was truly like my world has literally never been the same. And so then I got into, I like to say I jumped in with both feet. Yeah. And I've been making that joke for 20 years, and clearly I'm not ready to give it up yet. And like I really jumped right in. I started doing a bunch of fetish modeling. I started doing foot fetish sessions and pro sessions. And I very quickly created my own dungeon space and had one of the very early pro-dom, like actual pro-dom porn sites that were out there that were not just like porn with like mean words, let me mean, that kind of a stuff. And it really just snowballed. What I thought was going to be a early 20s lark turned into a lifelong mission that has just like changed and expanded.
That's so awesome. It sounds like the dream, like you discovered kind of this pot of gold, and you're like, I'm jumping right in.
Yes. Well, and I love an analogy. It was like both an actual pot of gold. I mean, I remember driving home from my first strip show, and like I'd made $800 in 40 minutes, and I was so awkward and bad, and I just was like, titties. And I just remember being like, oh my God, cash makes me hot. I really had no idea, which of course has developed into my financial domination stuff. But there was also the pot of gold inside myself. It turns out that the pot of gold was inside myself because it really allowed me to perfect and embrace and celebrate and revel in my strength and my eroticism and my understanding of taboo psychology and all of that. It really did feel like this magical path that I had stumbled on, Yeah. And so I still had no idea where it would lead me. I just knew it would be interesting.
I think it's still very interesting because the more you are able to teach it and help other people embrace this part of themselves, the more other people can, discover their own power. And it's a time for that, like I feel like a lot of women have been brought up in this culture to be kind of disempowered and all about serving somebody else's pleasure. And when we are embracing our own pleasure, it feels so much more like it doesn't look like what other people have told us to do. And giving, by living it, you're giving people permission to do that and to be it. Which is exactly what I needed, because I was also a stripper for a while, and that was kind of my gateway into sex work. And I have to say that the environment of the strip clubs felt very disempowering to me.
And I totally get that. The few times that I tried to go and get a job in a club, it felt so gross and way more like, yeah, disempowering is a really good word for it. You know, that the dynamic of a club versus, and I always, you know, I'm always very quick to say I have had an extremely privileged experience of sex work. I have never been a survival sex worker. It has always been a choice. And so my experience, you know, is not the same as women who have had less opportunities, whether because of, you know, anything like race or presentation or like anything, just the world, the fucked up world that we fucking live in, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm always very, very quick to acknowledge my privilege in this industry. And I think part of that was starting off working for women who owned these stripper services, right? And while they were messy messy women, they were at least it felt more like a collective than a lot of the strip clubs were. But you know, that transition, and I don't know what it was like for you, but for me it was very much like, oh, I'm not just a bitchy stripper, I'm a dominatrix. There's actually like a name for it and a specific path.
Bitchy stripper.
You know, and it was like, oh shit, okay, there's a reason that this doesn't quite fit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I felt the same way. I definitely appreciate your acknowledgement of your privilege, because I did, you know, like as an Asian American, I didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't tall. I didn't have big breasts. I didn't have a European face. And I was, you know, fetishized.
That's, yeah.
But I didn't, you know, like I didn't know how to sniff out the fetishists in the club. You know, it was hard to tell who was into what. And of course I was kind of like feeling disempowered because I'm so small, and also just feeling kind of like I don't, you know, I don't really belong here. You know, I would really like to find a place where I can really just be myself and not compete with all these other like tall European women. So, you know, many years later, you have created this whole arena of education for people that it's not, you know, like appearance based, and it's not race based, and it's a lot deeper. And so by I guess by engaging with people, is that how you learned about all these different kind of like psychological components of BDSM and kink?
Definitely. I have always been an absorber of, you know, knowledge and an observer of humanity. I think those are common traits in folks who are attracted to the pro-dom thread of sex work specifically, right? Is that a lot of us are armchair psychologists or actual psychologists. You know, it's a fantastic industry for that crossover. And I have both my parents are educators in very wildly different capacities. And so I come from a family of teacher, like people who teach, and so, you know, when I look back, even in my more strictly pro-dom phases, even my approach to the sessions with my clients and submissives was very like guide, teacher, educator sort of position. You know, I mean, I used to talk about forced feminism, that I wasn't really interested in necessarily forced. See, now I can't even say what the forced
Feminization.
Thank you. I'm like, I can't even think of what other people do in this. But for me, it was always like, I'm going to leave you a better, smarter, stronger person than I met you. And I think that while I fuck up constantly, both in my personal life and in my professional life. So again, acknowledgement of the difficulties of putting yourself in a position of teaching others. But I've just always been fascinated with not only learning from other people, but then translating that into digestible memorable lessons that I can learn and that then I can help other people learn, because mostly because I've realized my biggest kink, and I have a lot of kinks because I am genuinely a filthy fucking pervert, but my biggest kink is helping other people discover their own kinks and like discover their own empowerment. That is far and away the hottest thing that I have ever helped orchestrate in my entire life, you know?
Mhm. I feel you on that 100%. And I think this is in line with the self-improvement through perversion.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I feel I feel like one of my strongest mottos in my life is to leave something or someone better than when I found it.
Agreed.
But there's so many ways to do that, you know. So for you, why kink, and not something like coaching or, you know, therapy or
Yeah.
whatever?
That's a good question. Probably because I have always been an outlier. I mean, a conversation that echoes in my mind on an incredibly regular basis was in high school. I was always kind of too smart for the classes that I was in. And so I was one of those students that was like really smart, but kind of fucked around a lot and could always talk my way out of many situations and stuff. And I remember my mom one time just going, why can't you just play the game? And I said, Mom, because I create my game, or, you know, something like that. And I think that for me, you know, it really is, it's a Venn diagram. Actually, I have a Post-it note that describes it.
Show us.
Is that I'm like, is that this is it, is that I really do love Venn diagrams. I don't know if you guys can read this, but it's taboo, psychology, and theatricality. And so when you combine taboo subjects, I've always wanted, the moment that people were like, shh, we don't talk about those things. I'm like, what things? Tell me everything. I want to know. You know, psychology. I love to know how I work. I'm a nasal gazer. And to know how other people work. And then certainly a drama queen. I mean, for fuck's sake, I put on a tiara. So like, you know, it was kind of like, could I have been anything other than a dominatrix? Sure. But why would I have wanted to? And so I think, you know, kink, it really is just this, you know, for me and so many of us, this magical combination of interesting experiences. I mean, I have made multiple forays back into the mainstream world, and holy shit, boring. I'm not trying to be like rude or derogatory, but for me, it's like the difference between skydiving and knitting. Like, you know, knitting is fantastic. I'm grateful for like the really great sweaters and blankets that knitting people have created for me, but I am of the jump off of cliff variety.
Yes. Definitely. It's more thrilling to play with the more volatile aspects of people, and and I love that Venn diagram so much. I feel like you're like the little devil on my shoulder that I should have listened to a lot more. And
I will take that as the compliment. I'm sure it's intended.
because you know, I culturally identify as like Chinese American, and so my Chinese side was very like, follow the rules, keep your head down, don't make don't make too much noise. And of course I did things in my own perverted way, which was always kind of like under the radar crime. And
subversiveness, man,
yes,
is where it's at.
yes, but it wasn't of a sexual nature in a way that like satisfied any of my curiosities, you know. I feel like kink is definitely that big playground that I like stood on the sidelines for a long time, just like kind of looking in and not really sure where I fit in. And of course I was probably watching you like take all the boys and put them in a row, and then being like, well, you get to play with me and you don't, because and I just love that you were so savvy when you were that young, you know, in school doing these like homework assignments.
Savvy is certainly one word for it. Controlling. entitled. Yeah, creatively entitled. But yeah, no, let's go with yours. Yours is nicer.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and then you start honing, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
temper that flame, you temper that wildfire.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to have the fire.
You know, I think that so many of us come to this path, right? And in our own time, and that we often feel like there was time lost or whatever. And I think that culturally, you know, like I am the apex predator of entitled women. I'm a white woman. It's like, you know, not in actuality, I don't claim any actual superiority in that sense. But in terms of like being taught that I have the room to take up space of women,
Mm-hmm.
I am given the most space to take up space, which is not that much space, but is still more space than others, right? And so, you know, I'm all about like taking where we are now and being like, okay, yeah, I look back and think, oh, wow, there were many times that I could have spoken up differently or done different things. But what do I know now? And where can I go? And like, I look at, you know, it's like, you are such a fucking badass. And you are like, you have created your space in such a profound way. For you to have taken that journey, I think, is particularly cool. I hope that I communicated what I was trying to get through with that.
I mean, I definitely hear you saying that you do acknowledge your privilege as a white woman.
Yeah.
But you have also expanded that to help other women who are not white and who didn't take up as much space as they could when they were younger or now, to feel more empowered and to be more in touch with their true nature.
Exactly, is that I try to both acknowledge that I had a leg up in that department, and that I believe that the things that we know collectively in this community can be uniquely applied to every single, you know, person who wants to embody their own empowerment in that way. And that's really truly what my mission on earth is, whether that's through kink, which is, you know, Kink Academy was my I'd been teaching classes for a long time, but I created Kink Academy to try and platform other voices, people that may not always have the opportunity to get in front of other people, you know, that sort of a thing. A couple of years ago, I wrote my first mainstream book called Ditch the Bitch Stigma. It's about my experiences as a dominatrix and how I translate those things into more real world confidence and boundary setting and that sort of a thing. And so I feel like, you know, the only thing, if I don't do anything with my time on this earth, but continuously remind and create space for women and femmes and frankly just non-cis men. I mean, cis men, you got lots of space. I don't need to create it for you. And I feel okay with that. You know, if I can create as much space as possible for empowerment and confidence to blossom, then I will be grateful for my time here. I guess to be super sappy about it.
Well, you've done a really great job, especially within the kink world. And I'm so happy to hear that you wrote your first non-kink book. I didn't know, but I love, love, love the title, Ditch the Bitch Stigma, because there's definitely so many people in their heads are like, oh, I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to be a bitch. This is like, why not? Because it's so stigmatized.
Because it means a woman claiming strength. I mean, that's the only time that women are called bitches in a derogatory way, is when they are not giving ground. That is what makes a bitch, is a woman who doesn't give ground. And, you know, fuck yes, thank you.
Yes. So was your first book Enough to Make You Blush?
Yes.
Okay. I definitely love that book.
Thanks.
And it really helped me to understand erotic humiliation, not just regular humiliation. So can you briefly touch on the difference between erotic humiliation and regular humiliation?
Yes. Consent is the biggest. But beyond consent, It's the idea that whatever messy, low places you put someone in on the top side, or that you experience on the bottom side, that you come out the other side feeling glad you did it. Now, erotic humiliation can sometimes be a confusing description because folks who enjoy humiliation play don't always experience arousal in the most traditional sense, or in the most traditional rhythms, right? That they may not feel the arousal when they're being humiliated, but maybe they feel it later, or maybe it's not so much of a like genital arousal, but it's more of a psychological, emotional arousal and release. And so, I genuinely, after 20 years of doing really nothing but talking about and studying and, doing kink, I really feel like humiliation, erotic humiliation, psychological torment is the most complex and confusing kind of play, because there really isn't, it's not linear in the same way that even like impact play or restraint play can be a bit more linear, I think. Of course, that is a debate and conversation that many of my educator friends and I have passionately on a regular basis. But I think that the psychological nature of it is what makes it so powerful, and also makes it so intimidating for people to explore.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like a formula. There's no one size fits all. It's very contextual, so culturally and of the time. And so there's a lot to consider. And when you're with that person, you're, like you said, the arousal is not instantaneous or apparent. And a lot of times it's kind of like something that they reflect back on and they're like, oh my God, that was, amazing.
I was so humiliated, and then they're super aroused, right? And so it's just not necessarily quite as clear. Whereas you take, good old fashioned regular humiliation, and that just ends up leaving you feeling actual shame and bad about yourself. Is that one of the things I talk about a lot in my humiliation classes and in the book, is that, erotic humiliation is all about using those points of cultural context and saying, oh, you're lower than me, through use of, sexual expectations, body expectations, classism, racism. Like, you can't have erotic humiliation without all of these cultural context points. So it's about using that cultural context to put them down low, but then without the, yay, I love it when you're nothing but a filthy, low, humiliated thing. That, talk about a paradox. That is where the paradox of consent and psychological release and connection and intimacy and power and all of these just like potent things come together. And you're not going to get that shit when your boss reams you in front of your fellow employees. That's not that mix.
Yeah, it's not liberating because the context isn't there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, because I know that you understand kind of like humiliation to a very deep degree. Do you think, and this is kind of like, this is a culturally gendered kind of inquiry, but do you think that cis men fear humiliation?
Yes.
More than anything else, like more than death, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. I like to say that cis men cosplay oppression in kink. That a lot of cis men kink, and I say that lovingly. I mean, maybe lovingly is a strong term, but affectionately, certainly. But I think that that's true for all kink, right? Is that we so that's not something that is specific to cis men, in that we try to dance up to the edge of the things that scare us, is that it is often the juxtaposition of fear and excitement, of desire and repulsion, that is what we do, And so I think that for a lot of cis men, because there is so little culturally, socially speaking, that that they can be impacted by in a genuinely profound way, that then becomes the thing that they like to run up, and kind of look in the face, is this humiliation. I think that I can't at the moment think of who said it. It was someone brilliant who said, men are afraid that women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will murder them, right? Yeah. And so that right there is, I think, at the heart of why there is a profoundly higher interest in erotic humiliation than anybody. Mm-hmm. I think, frankly, even a lot of people in this industry even understand, but it's because there's such a lack of nuance in our understanding of what kind of humiliation mm-hmm. someone might want to choose to experience within consensual arenas. And everyone has the right to do that. I'm not knocking men's right to explore things that make them afraid. In fact, I celebrate it. I think that men are specifically not given enough celebrated opportunities to explore the things that make them afraid. I don't really spend a lot of my sympathy thinking about that. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they come to it one day. Yeah. Of their own, and then they understand, like, oh, this is, and again, this is also something that's taboo, so there's more draw, but also, like you said, that attraction and repulsion that creates that tension.
Yes. And for, I don't think that people need to get into this sort of meta understanding of kink in order to enjoy kink. I'd say that 95% of the people who enjoy kink don't think about these things, and that is totally okay. Yeah. But the ones that, and particularly the cis men who are able to reflect on why they are attracted to the things that they're attracted to, are the ones that pique my personal interest and make me want to invest my time and attention and expertise and that sort of a thing, right? And so for those of you subs out there that are listening or watching this, the more that you can think about, like, you don't have to like swan dive into your own psyche, at least not on your own, but the more that you can at least have some self-reflection about how your privileges or life experiences have attracted you to your interests, not only will you be a better client or submissive or play partner, but when you share those things, your partner will have more to dig around in and play with. Mm-hmm. So it's actually serves you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You open up your Pandora's box and your partner can get in there and rifle around.
What the fuck that box is holding. Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I really love that it's such a nuanced arena of play, and that you've really broken it down in so many ways that are very easy to understand, because that is one thing that I have sought out that is really challenging to learn, like it's like there's no formula. And so you have to learn on a case-by-case basis, and you have to learn the psychological principles of it. And you have to kind of learn the cultural context too. So it's a little more sophisticated than just like, say, impact play.
It really is. I mean, it takes longer to learn the techniques, partially because you have to apply them differently, right? I mean, we all have different bodies, clearly, but if you line 10 people up and spank them in the same way, you're going to get essentially the same physiological response, right? But that is 100% not the case when it comes to psychological play. Mm-hmm. So, for me, it's why it's endlessly interesting to me. But I know it can be intimidating for a lot of folks. But that's partially why I've been trying to kind of create, clearer frameworks to follow, to at least give people as much of a framework as possible, like not a formula, like do this, then this, then this, but more of a framework that then you build upon.
Do these frameworks also show up in your other books, say like 365 Days of Kink or Authentic Kink?
So 365 Days of Kink is just a journal. Every day it's got a prompt, some that are fun, some that are serious, that is meant to be a space for self-reflection. Authentic Kink definitely is a framework. One of the things I talk about really in all of my classes is the kernel kink, right? Is that so much we focus on activity, but focusing on feeling and what is the headspace that you are trying to create, and then targeting your activities to create that headspace rather than hoping the activities you choose create the headspace you're after. And so that's one of my big ones. A framework that I am intensely excited about, Dia, that I just came up with very recently is for my ethical FinDom class. Yeah, so I've been teaching ethical FinDom for like 7 years, and so it's a class and concepts that I've taught for a really long time. But I recently came up with a very structured approach to FinDom in a way that gives, because FinDom is another one of these topics that has such a bad rap. For a long time, humiliation was, even in kink scenes, was talked about like, nope, that's just an abusive thing that abusive people do, and it's just a fucked up thing, not like this whipping and bondage and like, okay, kinksters, right? That it used to be that humiliation was this thing, and now that has been a bit more normalized, and I hope that my book has helped with that. And I feel really strong. I'm kind of obsessed with FinDom right now, specifically because I see so many bad actors, yes, right? Like there are just bad people who use FinDom as a cover. They're not FinDoms, they're assholes who are using FinDom as a cover. It's very important. But I think there's a lot more, both dominants and submissives, that would be way more interested in money kink explorations if they had an understanding of how it could be done in ways that are not just humiliating, in ways that are not just bankruptcy oriented, right? And so I did my first ethical FinDom intensive in January, and was going to wait until next year, and then got kind of obsessed. And so I've revamped it, and next week I'm doing the 2-week intro class where you get a look at the framework. You get a sense of what I'm calling the FinDom play matrix. Can you tell I'm excited about it, Dia?
I'm excited about it just listening to you.
Like, I'm a pervert for process. And so like the process that I have created to help doms figure out who the fin subs are that they're playing with, and how to create something that feels good and healthy for everybody that is involved. Like, that is where my current kick is.
That is so important that you bring that up, that everybody feels good and healthy.
Yes.
Because I think that, we're just briefly mentioning kind of some of the people who are assholes that call themselves FinDoms.
Yes.
Like, just looking at some of their stuff, I'm not participating, but I'm like, ooh, like I feel gross just looking at it. And I don't understand, I guess they're just getting this idea and kind of running with it without any real education. And I took your ethical FinDom class, and had a better understanding, even though it's still not something that I'm fully engaged with. But I do have an idea that, there are subs out there whose service is to like give money or to buy things.
Yes.
Like, that's kind of their use.
Yes.
And it makes them feel good to be useful.
Yes. And it's not about, and so this is what, so even since, did you take the 2-hour class?
I took the 2-hour class, but I'm really excited about your new class because it sounds like
it's been revamped.
Yeah.
It takes the concepts that I have been teaching for years and it just like brings them all together in a way that I am like levitatingly excited about. And so that's happening April 28th.
Okay.
And so to look out for that. And so the 2-hour class, everyone, anyone is welcome to that one. Dom, sub, switches, pros, lifestyles, anybody's welcome for that. And then the intensive that I'm doing, which is 2 days, it's got like 8 hours of classes and Q&A, and where I go even more deeply into the concepts. It really is about taking the different approaches and understanding that for some of them it's about money, but for some of them it's not about money. Money is just the tool, right? So like, yeah, I'm
Don't
very
give it
excited.
away.
It's new clay. It's new clay that I have been playing with,
Amazing. And I love seeing how enthusiastic you get about this stuff because you're so articulate, and of course, like using these verbal skills to teach and to communicate and to uplift other people. It sounds like one of your methods of self-improvement through perversion. So I can definitely sense like why you would be excited about these new frameworks and revamping.
Well, my hope is that it gives the sex workers who take the classes, it's professional development, that it gives them an opportunity to make more money in their businesses, but also for the submissives, that the submissives and fin subs out there, that they know that there are people out there who can engage in this kind of a kink and this kind of a play in a way that doesn't leave you any more bedraggled, left on the floor than you want to be, just like any other kink,
Yeah, it's
empowerment all around.
Yes.
You get empowerment and you get empowerment.
And you get to feel good after
exactly.
Your wallet
and you get to spend your money but feel good about it. And I get to take your money and feel good about it. And
everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Seriously.
Yeah. Wow. I wish I could take this class. My schedule is kind of crazy with the Femdom Farm. And
yes, congratulations for that.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Level of excitement. I felt, sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. I'm so excited on your behalf. So the level of excitement that I feel for you, I can't even imagine how you must feel.
I have to really kind of space out that excitement, or else I just don't know if my body can handle it. But people like you who inspire me so much. I want to create, it's the Femdom Farm, so I want to create little shrines too. And as
you mentioned that.
And some people know about Kali kind of like as a Hindu goddess. Is that where the name came from, or no? Okay.
It's not. Nope. I don't I have no intention of appropriating the name and, that sort of a thing. I mean, she is I've certainly learned about her, and she is a glorious, she dances upon men, and I have a profound respect. But I'm a white woman and have no intent of appropriating Kali Ma, the goddess, in that way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I thought it could be interesting to have a little shrine that's to both of you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm honored because she is astounding and glorious. So
she is, and she dances upon the heads of men, and like you kind of do too.
Well, and she creates through destruction, and it's like I think there's so much. I mean, there is so much there for her. So. So I certainly feel cared for by her without making any intentional appropriation of her. For me, that's I try and respect that line.
Yeah, I really appreciate that too. Because I didn't know, I didn't know if you had any relation to that name or that
Yeah.
goddess, and knowing more about you, there's still things that are very, there is a Venn diagram of Princess Callie and Callie Ma.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have felt her energy, I think, throughout my entire life and career. And I love this idea that you mentioned when we were tweeting back and forth when you first announced it about this shrine. I think, what a beautiful way to create a physical space of reverence, not only for like the history in our industry, which, doesn't have nearly as many remembrances as we deserve, but of the divine energy, that we are all filled with.
Yes, yes. And and the like the divine feminine energy that
Mhm.
so many of us are maybe like needing to come back to as well.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. But back to you. So I'm just going down
Excuse me.
your bibliography here, and can you tell us a little bit more about this more intersectional book about um, Making Bank, a money management workbook for erotic entrepreneurs?
Sure. That was the workbook I released last year. So last year I was on track to do this big like mainstream push. I had written Ditch the Bitch Stigma in 2019. I was going to launch this whole mainstream speaking career that I'd been like working on for the last 4 or 5 years. And then the pandemic hit. And I basically was like, I have no interest in working with vanilla people in the midst of all of this chaos. I want to serve the community that I care about. And so I created the Red Key Club, which is this online virtual learning platform, right? And so I created like 50 hours of classes and discussions and content. And as part of that, I did a series called Money Management for Sex Workers. Now, I have dyscalculia. I have struggled with numbers my entire life. I mean, full anxiety, panic attacks, love making money, hated managing it. And after this whole conversation, all of these conversations, I found out that a lot of other sex workers struggle with numbers the way that I do, and that a lot of us do things in an analog way. Like, I don't like spreadsheets. They completely trigger my anxiety response when it comes to math. And so it is the most shocking thing I have ever created, that I created this budgeting and like financial management workbook specifically geared towards sex workers to help you track sessions and video. So many of us have diversified income streams, particularly after this last year. And so Making Bank is a place for you to get your colored pens out if you're like me, and really get to know your numbers in a way that feels less intimidating, ideally, and it helps you feel more in control. Because a few years ago, when I started to finally find ways to get more comfortable with my numbers, my entire financial life changed because of just my ability to not be afraid of those things anymore, and to be informed about my own income streams. Is that it was just, I'd always kind of kept it a little looser than that. So I'm really proud of Making Bank. I'm really proud of all my books, but like that one was just so out of left field for me, that it ended up, I meant to release it in like June of last year, but pandemic time meant that it came out in like November. And then right now, I should have had it ready. I'm working on what will hopefully be released soon, which is my most recent workbook, which is the Pro Dom Playbook.
Oh,
which takes a bunch of the information from the Red Key Club branding classes and ideal client profile classes and puts them in a handy dandy analog where you can hold it in your hands. I'm kind of obsessed with workbooks.
I love that because they're interactive.
They are interactive. The thing that I love about them is that it takes my smarts and you add your smarts. And so there's like twice as much unique smarts in a workbook than there is even in a traditional book. You know?
Yes. Oh, that's so great. I really enjoy the this thing that you're doing specifically for sex workers and your community, and turning and like your smarts and your education and your experiences into something that is digestible and easy to understand, and giving so many people access to that, even if they're not necessarily trying to be pro doms, even if they're just trying to do sex work.
Yeah, it's applicable. I mean, I speak from my experience. I try and be as straightforward about what my experience is. Again, I haven't been a survival sex worker there. Have had a lot of privilege in my life and in my work, but I think that the concepts that I teach in these things are applicable, whether you are full service, whether you're a phone sex operator or do cam modeling. Branding and understanding who your clientele is just good business. And so that's what the Red Key Club is about. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I compulsively study business concepts and marketing concepts. And it's about taking those concepts, but applying them to the unique needs of the sex industry and to sex workers specifically.
Yes. And there hasn't been a lot of that. There's definitely been a lot of areas of unknowns of how we navigate the business world with our money and with our need for processing certain types of payments and things like that. Do you have like security and like privacy type of information and cautionary stuff like that in there too?
Yes. I just shared a website called deleteme.com, which is one that I really recommend in terms of protecting your private information. I've dealt with a lot of stalkers, some very recent situations even. And so, I am really big on privacy over visibility, and finding a good balance that's going to match for wherever you are. Okay. And so while I certainly don't cover that perfectly, I try and touch on that in most of my classes somehow.
Yeah, as just something that people should be aware of and might want to look into in different resources.
And how to actually integrate your concept of protecting yourself into not as this like compartmentalized thing, but actually in like, how do you build your branding? How do you build your business? That stuff isn't separate from your safety.
Right. The safety is the web that goes around everything that you put out there.
Exactly. It's the caulk between the tiles of your business. Safety caulk.
Not C-O-C-K like
I am also a 14-year-old boy who is still wildly entertained by words that sound one way but are spelled another.
Yes. Yes, thank you for those.
Maturity ain't got nothing on me.
No, you keep it playful and fun, and that's really special.
Life is hard. Life is hard. Please laugh a lot. It's really my motto, one of my mottos.
Yeah. And I think that teaching and like conveying information is so much, I guess, like for me, it's better received when there's some humor and levity to it.
Yeah, for sure. I take what I teach seriously, but I try not to take myself too seriously, and that can be an important balance, I find, to help people receive the information without being wrapped in too much pomposity, which is a problem sometimes.
It's distracting, to be honest. It's like, oh, know if I want that information from this person.
Yeah.
So,
It does. It hurts it hurts authority and credibility. You know, I as part of the Red Key Club, one of the classes, the branding for pro doms, although again it's applicable to all sex workers, but I came up with a 6-step, like the star framework. Gotta love the frameworks. And so I'm actually going to be doing a class with a 6-step framework for educators that starts with the same principles, that if you want to be a kink or a sex educator, you know, these are kind of the 6 steps to your superstar sex educator branding. And I talk a lot about how to build credibility in a way that doesn't, you know, that's suitable to you as a person, but doesn't put so much distance between you and your audience that nobody gives a shit about what you're talking about.
Very important.
Yeah.
Wow, so much information you have to offer. It's really just, I don't know, I'm really thrilled for you, and I hope that more people find you. I'm going to
Thank
scroll
you.
this banner so that people can find you and support
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
The Princess Callie is on Twitter and Instagram under the Princess Callie.
And also FetLife. That's, I mean, it's, you know, FetLife does their stupid numbers, but if you just search the Princess Callie on FetLife, you'll find me there as well.
Okay, and the FetLife. Coachingbycallie.com. Is this all kinds of coaching?
So coaching, I do both lifestyle and professional. I've been working with a lot of really fantastic pro doms lately, one-on-one. I'm very targeted. I don't like to waste a lot of time. I like to give you actionable suggestions and to empower you to make good choices in your business. I'm also starting to do more coaching around what I call the kinktrepreneur model. So anybody who's building any kind of business around kink, as well as sex educators, folks who are looking to expand, like pro doms that are looking to expand into sex education. I can help you figure out your classes and your pace, you know, kind of how you want to present that kind of a thing. So I do cover a lot of ground, and for the things that I don't coach on, I generally know someone I can connect you with.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're just like such a resource of so many things.
That exactly, so many things that basically sums me up. So many things.
So many options, people. We better take advantage.
Yeah, I am my own wall of jam.
And then you have a Patreon, and I noticed that when I hover over the Red Key Club, it goes to it points to the Patreon. Is this true?
Yes. Right now, the Red Key Club is hosted on Patreon. I have some potential plans to move it at some point. I just kind of have too many you know, pots on the fire at the moment, but the Patreon and the Red Key Club is for industry only. And so it's not for clients or submissives. I do coaching for some clients and submissives or for lifestyle couples, but it's really rare that I do coaching for single men, just mostly because they're not actually looking for coaching all that often. But the Red Key Club, you'll find all the content on Patreon, and it's currently a sliding scale. So anywhere from $15 to $40 gets you access to 50 hours of recordings. Plus every month I do an accountability check-in. And so it helps you show up, you talk about the goals that you've been working on. It's a great place to celebrate your successes and to set new goals and intentions for yourself. And then I'm also just started doing Power Pals, where you get assigned somebody else from the group to meet up for networking or socializing or business stuff, but to try and help facilitate more connections in this in this community.
Brilliant.
So there's a lot going on there.
There is. I love it. And there's just like so many different ways to connect and to receive this information and knowledge. And then kinkacademy.com is another educational site. correct?
Yes. So that I founded, but it's not really like a Princess Callie site. It is, I founded it, I run it, but there are 150, more than 150 other educators. There's like 2,000 videos. It's like $20 a month. And the videos teach you anything, everything and anything from gender presentation to relationship structures to lighting your partners on fire. So it's a really great way. It's not a replacement for in-person learning necessarily, but for folks who don't have the opportunity to learn in person or as a way to supplement your learning, it's more skills-based, and it's not just for sex industry. It's for any sexy, horny, pervy people.
Okay. And then do you do mentorships?
I do mentorships through coaching. And so that's kind of the way is that I do more long-term coaching. And I think of that as mentoring, but that is still done through the coaching. And then also on, like, if you go to coachingbycallie.com, that's where you can find all my classes. So like right now you can find both of the ethical financial domination events. Tickets are linked on that website. And so that's kind of, and I've got like a blog and stuff. So that's kind of my hub.
Okay. So I'm going to put that in the chat for anybody that might know or not know where to go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, so ethical financial domination, I highly recommend, especially since she has revamped it and it's probably easier to understand and broken down even more.
It's like a whole tool system. It's very exciting.
I love your enthusiasm so much. It's very infectious. So these are your newest projects. Is there anything else that you're working on that you'd like to share?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, the Red Key Club, you can find all of my books on Amazon, or you can order my books off of my website, Coaching by Callie. Mm-hmm. You can also I have a whole series of decks. So like I call it my pocket pervert thesaurus. So like the verbal humiliation deck is 200 filthy phrases to call your loved ones today. So you can find all of that stuff on Coaching by Callie. But I think Red Key Club, books, coaching, and ethical findom, and Kink Academy, those are the big winners lately.
Amazing. You have so much going on, and I just love that. So I'll definitely be sending people your way.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here this evening and for your effervescence and your laughter and your lightness.
Thank you, Dia. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am sincerely delighted to be here. And like I said before we got started, and I think since we got started, I think that what you and Lucy are doing here and facilitating conversations and what you're doing with, Femdom Farm and all of the ways that you are contributing to the community. I see you and I appreciate you. So thanks for having me on here today.
Thank you. That really means a lot, Princess Callie.
Mutual Admiration Society. Yes. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Awesome. Celeste. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that so much. And for happy haptics pervert for process. I'm getting it on a t-shirt soon. So coming soon to a store near you. So thanks everybody for being such a great spot to chat.
Yeah. I just want to say one last thing, and this is just our own little Patreon that we have going on for La Maison de Rouge. If you would like to help us support this programming, please subscribe. Yes, we're all about mutual aid and support these days because we can't rely on anybody else to help us. Patreon.com/La Maison de Rouge is how you can do that. And I don't know if we have any, I don't think we have any actual questions because you have informed us with so much knowledge today that there's just nothing else to ask. That's
I am a bulldozer of information. It is true. But if anyone has any follow-up questions or anything, you can mostly find me on Twitter. That Twitter is far and away my favorite social media. And I'm going to be doing a lot of Findom tips and stuff over the next few weeks leading up to my classes. So even just following me on Twitter, you'll get a bunch of free fun stuff. And please feel free to reach out on all of the various social medias and say hello.
I'll make sure to turn on my notifications for the Princess Callie too.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right, great. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your week and Monday night as well.
Thank you. You too. And I will see you all around.
Yes. Goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Bye.